reason I say recovering instead of recovered is I still suffer from it sometimes. It doesn't go away. And in a conversation I was having with Sonia Lanspach, who's at Idaho State University and actually an alumna of here, we started talking about how can we make this stuff happen in the classroom? We all talk about dialect matters and dialect variety matters, but you walk in an English classroom or you walk in a humanities classroom and it's academic right, it's standard American English, blah, blah, blah. So if we all say, hey, it's okay, why aren't we making it happen in the classroom? And the problem is college student speakers, and this relates to my 5th grade story, is they feel often studies show students often feel devalued and marginalized because of their speech. They don't want to talk in class. They have a lack of confidence in writing in papers. How many in here have observed that among their students, that a lot of the issues are like confidence? I talk dumb. Please don't judge my grammar too hard. You hear all these kinds of things. But the thing is these varieties, they're viewed as a liability and not as an asset. And so many of the methods that get used in the classroom are what's called a subtractive method, taking away from, like the red pen. When I learned how to write, was a young technical writer, I would turn my stuff in and guess what would come back? Somebody bled all over it. And these are the actual broad dialect regions. I heard you talking about California is like its own thing.
It's actually 2.
Yeah, well, and actually they break down even further than this. I mean, it's ridiculous. But if you notice, San Francisco urban is its own dialect area. And then,
oh, it's right here.
Right there, that's the Pennsylvania Dutch.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's weird to not see them.
I know. I have one more from online. It was a really interesting observation. He says, as a non-American, it always amuses me that folks in this country think they don't have accents or dialects, but you can travel 30 minutes down the road and the dialect changes noticeably for international students.
Yeah. So this is the data from Alabama. This is the data from Southeast Michigan for most correct.
What?
You would think if like correct is correct and not correct is not correct, shouldn't both maps be the same? Why might they be different? So look, depending on the space you're occupying, where you're living, your perception is going to be different. In this one, do the same thing, rate each state, draw lines, whatever, but on a scale of 1 to 10, where they speak the most pleasantly. How many put 1 for at least one state or a group of states in the Southeast United States?
Actually, yeah.
Yes. And I'm assuming not everybody here is from that area, right? Really what this is about, the first chunk of this workshop and the reason we spent so much time to this point is about increasing your awareness about dialect. For me, until I could become aware of my own, recognize it in others, there was no way I could start incorporating stuff into the classroom. So what this means is, a lot of people, at least on this survey, and I don't know about y'all, have some sort of linguistics training that would include study of dialect, but few devote attention to dialect in the classroom. What helped in this survey, though, is it helped Sonia and I identify knowledge gaps in instructors. The majority is what's called contrastively, I alluded to that earlier, the old red pen method, where language is a liability. It's compared to academic English. And usually, it's just marked individually on their papers or in conferences, not in the classroom. A couple people did do it additively. 2/3 of the course is dedicated to a discourse community ethnography project. You can't get more deep into dialect in class than that. And both of the instructors who responded assigned tasks, assignments of some sort that focus on like dialect and how it's used in discourse. So now we're going to get into the part you most importantly hear about. And that there's these 2 approaches to language learning. There's the subtractive approach and the additive approach. The subtractive approach is about replacing one language system, in this case, their variety, and replacing it with standard American English. In the subtractive approach, there's an overwhelming belief that a student's variety of language is a barrier to them learning standard English or written academic English. There's pressure to assimilate. And because language is so tied up in identity, students are forced to abandon their identities in school in order to be able to speak properly. The additive approach, which treats variety as an asset, adds new languages to the existing systems. Because the more people we are able to negotiate those languages, the greater number of situations they can communicate effectively in. So there's several levels which you can use this dialect awareness in the classroom. Assignment level is smaller assignments that focus on like language awareness and variation. At the language level, you can have them like analyze their own dialect, analyze another language, and like maybe switch vocabularies between the two in their writing. You know, have them write one draft in their dialect, have them write another draft in what they think is academic English, and make the links between, okay, when I'm in my own dialect, I do this, but when I need to navigate that space of academic writing, this is what I do instead. And it makes it more a matter of translation.
I just wonder about what is the learning objective of doing that assignment?
Yeah, so in this case, there's kind of two objectives for each assignment. One is what it is I have to teach the student. I mean, I don't get to teach them dialect all day in English 102 or whatever. You know, they've got to write papers. They have to learn to cite sources. They have to learn, you know, all those like fundamental things. So how do I get the objectives of the course done and bring dialect in that and dialect perception? So there's kind of two objectives with each assignment. You're not going to be able to do it with every assignment. Sometimes it's just going to be, sorry, you have to write an essay in academic language. But the idea here is like, how can you bring both of those together? Does that make sense?